He stood there, champagne flute in hand, the king of his own victory. The divorce was final. Mark Callahan had everything: the sprawling mansion, the lucrative business, the freedom he craved. His ex-wife Ava was left with nothing but a paltry settlement and her worthless little hobbies. He had won. Or so he thought. 1 year later, at the most exclusive investment summit of the year, Mark watched as the legendary billionaire Nathaniel Reed took the stage. But it wasn't the billionaire who made his blood run cold. It was the woman he introduced as his star protege, the brilliant mind behind the next tech revolution. Ava. The air in the lawyer's conference room was stale thick with the scent of expensive leather and unspoken resentments. It was a sterile beige room designed for the methodical dismantling of lives, and it was working its cold magic perfectly. Ava Monroe stared at the pen lying beside the thick stack of documents. Its gold nib gleamed under the recessed lighting, looking more like the tip of a dagger than a writing instrument. Her lawyer, a kind but weary woman named Susan, gave her a gentle nudge. "Ava, it's the last step. Just sign, and this will all be over." Over. The word echoed in the hollow space where Ava's heart used to be. Across the polished mahogany table, her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, Mark Callahan, sat back in his chair. He wasn't just relaxed, he was triumphant. A small, smug smile played on his lips as he swirled the amber liquid in the crystal glass his lawyer had poured for him. He looked every bit the victor, dressed in a custom-tailored suit that probably cost more than the car Ava would be driving away in. "Don't rush her, Susan," Mark said, his voice smooth and condescending. "It's a big moment for Ava, the moment she officially gets to stand on her own 2 feet. It'll be an adjustment." Every word was a carefully aimed dart. For 10 years, Mark had cultivated the narrative that Ava was fragile, dependent, and incapable without him. He had managed their finances, made all the major decisions, and gently mocked her attempts at independence. Her ideas for a small business based on a unique software she was developing in her spare time were dismissed as cute hobbies or little projects to keep you busy. Now, in this final act of their marriage, he was cementing that narrative. The settlement was a joke, a calculated pittance designed to be just enough to prevent a lengthy court battle, but not enough for her to ever be comfortable. He was keeping the house, the vacation properties, the stocks, and the company he had built partially with the inheritance from her parents. She was getting a used car, a small lump sum that would barely cover a year's rent, and her freedom. To Mark, it was a lopsided trade that proved his superiority. Ava's hand trembled as she picked up the pen. Her gaze fell on the final page. Her name, Ava Monroe, felt foreign. For a decade she had been Ava Callahan, an extension of Mark, an accessory to his success. Who was Ava Monroe? Mark seemed to think she was a nobody, a ghost who would fade into obscurity. A part of her, the part he had so carefully conditioned, was terrified he was right. Just think of it. Ava, Mark continued, leaning forward as if sharing a generous secret. No more responsibilities. You can focus all your time on your, what is it you call it, your digital organizer project. See, every cloud has a silver lining. The mockery was blatant. He knew she called it the Aura Protocol, a sophisticated system for intuitive life management she had been passionately coding for years. He called it a digital organizer to diminish it, to make it sound like a cheap App Store knockoff. That project was the one part of her soul he hadn't managed to crush. In the lonely hours while he was out at business dinners or networking events, she had poured herself into the complex algorithms and elegant user interface, creating something she knew deep down was special. Her eyes met his. The smugness in his gaze was the final push she needed. It wasn't just about ending the marriage anymore. It was about surviving his victory lap. She thought of the countless nights he'd come home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. She thought of the way he'd belittle her in front of their friends, dressing his insults up as jokes. She thought of the crushing discovery of his long-term affair, the final undeniable proof that their entire life together had been a lie. The humiliation, the grief, the anger, it all swirled within her, hardening into a quiet, cold resolve. She would not let him see her break. Not now. Not ever. With a steady hand that surprised even herself, she signed her name. The ink was black and final. Ava Monroe. She pushed the documents across the table. "It's done," she said, her voice clear and even. Mark's smile widened. He clapped his lawyer on the back. "Excellent. Well, Ava, I wish you the best." "Truly." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'm sure you'll land on your feet." Eventually. He didn't offer a handshake, just a dismissive nod. As he and his lawyer began gathering their things, laughing about a dinner reservation at an exclusive restaurant, Ava felt a strange sense of calm descend. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was now overlaid with something else, a flicker of defiance. He thought he had taken everything. He had the assets, the power, the public image of the successful man shedding his dependent wife. He thought he had won. Let him. He had left her with the one thing he couldn't value and therefore couldn't take the contents of her mind. He had left her with Aura. As she walked out of that beige room leaving the life of Ava Callahan behind forever, she clutched her worn leather notebook filled with a decade of code ideas and dreams a little tighter. Mark could have the past. She was now, terrifyingly, thrillingly, in possession of her future. The door to apartment 3B clicked shut with a sound that was anything but reassuring. It was a flimsy, hollow sound, a stark contrast to the solid, authoritative thud of the oak door at the mansion she used to call home. Ava leaned against it, the single box of her most personal belongings at her feet, and surveyed her new reality. The apartment was small, a shoebox compared to her previous life. The living room bled into a kitchenette, and a single window looked out onto a grimy brick wall. The air smelled of dust and the faint, lingering aroma of the previous tenant's curry. This was it. This was what was left after 10 years of marriage to a man who promised her the world. The first few weeks were a blur of disorientation and grief. Every morning she would wake up with a jolt of panic, her heart racing as she momentarily forgot where she was. The silence was the loudest thing in the apartment. At the mansion there had always been the hum of the pool filter, the distant sound of the gardener, the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Here the silence was absolute, broken only by the sirens that wailed in the distance or the muffled arguments of her neighbors through the thin walls. Loneliness was a physical presence, a cold companion that sat with her at the small, wobbly kitchen table as she ate instant noodles from a ceramic bowl, one of the few things she'd brought with her. Her friends, who were really Mark's friends, had sent a few half-hearted texts after the divorce. "Thinking of you, and let us know if you need anything." But the invitations to dinner parties and charity events had stopped abruptly. She was no longer part of their world. She was social collateral damage. Mark's final words in the lawyer's office haunted her. "I'm sure you'll land on your feet." Eventually. The condescension in his tone was a poison that seeped into her thoughts. Doubt began to fester. What if he was right? What if she wasn't capable of making it on her own? She had a degree in computer science, but she hadn't worked a real job in a decade. The tech world moved at lightning speed. She was a relic. One evening, after another day of fruitless job searching online, the weight of it all became too much. The rejection emails, the mounting bills, the suffocating loneliness, it all crashed down on her. She curled up on the lumpy second-hand sofa and wept. It was a raw, guttural sob for the life she had lost, the love she thought she had, and the future she couldn't see. In the depths of her despair, her eyes landed on the cardboard box tucked into a corner. It was filled with her old notebooks, hard drives, and scribbled diagrams, the entire history of the Aura protocol. She had barely looked at it since the move, too pained by Mark's dismissive words. "Your cute little hobby." Drained of tears, she felt a different emotion begin to stir anger. A hot, clarifying rage. How dare he? How dare he make her feel so small, so worthless? How dare he take the best years of her life and then toss her aside like she was nothing? Fueled by this newfound fire, she walked over to the box and pulled out the top notebook. She ran her fingers over the worn leather cover. Inside were the first lines of code she had ever written for Aura, a messy scrawl of ideas and possibilities. It wasn't just a project. It was a diary of her intellect, a testament to a part of herself she had kept hidden from Mark's critical gaze. She retrieved her old laptop, an outdated model he had insisted was good enough for her, and plugged it in. The screen flickered to life and she navigated to the files she hadn't touched in months. There it was, Aura. She opened the source code, and as her fingers found their familiar rhythm on the keyboard, something inside her shifted. The code was elegant. The logic was sound. The concept was brilliant. She knew it was. Mark's voice of doubt in her head began to fade, replaced by the quiet confidence of her own expertise. She had built this. It was complex, intuitive, and powerful. It was more than a digital organizer. It was a predictive, adaptive system designed to streamline and enhance a person's life by learning their habits and anticipating their needs. It was revolutionary. That night, for the first time in months, she didn't cry. She coded. With every line she wrote, she wasn't just building a program, she was rebuilding herself. The hum of the laptop replaced the suffocating silence. The logical flow of the algorithms provided an order that her life desperately lacked. She worked through the night, fueled by black coffee and a burning desire to prove him wrong. To prove herself right. The apartment was still small. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time since she had signed those papers, Ava felt a flicker of hope. Mark had left her in the ashes of their former life, but he had overlooked the one thing: he could never take the spark of her own fire. And in the quiet solitude of apartment 3B, that spark was about to be fanned into a flame. The next few months were a grueling test of endurance. Ava established a new disciplined routine. Her days were divided into two starkly different realities. From 9 to 5, she was a gig worker taking on freelance data entry and basic website maintenance jobs that paid just enough to keep the lights on and buy groceries. It was soul-crushing, mind-numbing work, a constant reminder of how far her career had fallen. But from 5 o'clock onwards, her tiny apartment transformed into the headquarters of Aura Innovations, a company that for now consisted only of her aging laptop and a mountain of ambition. She used the pittance she earned from her freelance work to pay for server space and software development tools. Every spare dollar from her settlement was funneled into her project. Dinner was often a luxury. Sleep was a distant memory. She refined the code, optimized the algorithms, and designed a sleek, minimalist interface. She poured everything she had into creating a working prototype, a functional demonstration of Aura's potential. The system was more than just a calendar or a to-do list. It integrated with every aspect of a user's digital life: emails, social media, finances, health apps, and used a proprietary machine learning algorithm to not just organize, but to anticipate. It could suggest the most efficient route to a meeting based on real-time traffic, pre-order groceries when it sensed you were running low, and even curate a personalized news feed based on the topics you were actively working on. It was a true digital assistant. The problem was no one knew it existed. She was an unknown woman with no connections, no track record, and no funding. She submitted her business plan to a dozen venture capital firms and was met with a wall of silence, or worse, form letter rejections. "Not a fit for our portfolio at this time," they all said. The words were a polite mask for what she suspected they were really thinking. Who was this woman coming out of nowhere with such a bold idea? The rejections stung, each one a fresh jab at her already bruised confidence. Mark's voice would creep back in at her lowest moments, whispering that she was in over her head, that she was chasing a silly dream. Refusing to give up, she changed her strategy. Instead of aiming for the giants, she started looking for smaller local opportunities. She found one online, the Innovate Local Tech Showcase, a small competition for aspiring entrepreneurs in the city. The grand prize was only $5,000, but it came with something far more valuable: a chance to pitch to a panel of local investors and tech journalists. It was terrifying. The thought of standing on a stage presenting her life's work to a room of strangers made her stomach churn. But she knew she had to. This was her one shot. She spent a week preparing, barely sleeping, as she perfected her presentation. She bought a simple, professional-looking blazer from a thrift store, her one concession to looking the part. The day of the showcase was a chaotic blur. The event was held in a crowded, noisy university auditorium. Ava felt like an imposter among the slick, confident young men in hoodies who spoke a dizzying dialect of tech jargon. She was older, she was a woman, and she was alone. When her name was called, she walked to the stage on legs that felt like jelly. She fumbled with the microphone, her hands shaking. She could see the judges looking at their phones, their expressions bored and impatient. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice trembling at first. But then something shifted. As she started explaining the architecture of Aura, the passion took over. She spoke about the code, the potential, the way it could seamlessly integrate into people's lives. She ran the live demo showing how Aura could intelligently reschedule an entire day with a single command, learning and adapting in real time. The judges started to look up from their phones. One of them, a notoriously tough local investor named Robert Peterson, leaned forward, his brow furrowed in concentration. The room grew quiet. When she finished, there was a moment of silence followed by a smattering of polite applause. Ava's heart sank. It wasn't enough. During the Q&A, Peterson grilled her. He picked apart her revenue model, questioned her scaling strategy, and challenged the uniqueness of her algorithm. Ava, however, was on solid ground. She had spent years thinking about these very questions. She answered each one with calm, data-backed precision. She didn't win. The prize went to a flashy social media app developed by 2 college students. As they accepted the oversized check, a wave of disappointment washed over Ava. It was over. She had failed. As she was packing up her laptop, a shadow fell over her. It was Robert Peterson. "Tough break," he said, his expression unreadable. "It's okay," Ava replied, trying to sound gracious. "It was good experience." "Good experience," he scoffed. "You were the only one in that room with a truly disruptive idea. Those kids who won their app will be obsolete in 6 months. What you have, that has legs." Ava stared at him, stunned. "But your business plan is a mess," he continued bluntly. "You're thinking too small. This isn't a local app, Miss Monroe. This is a global platform. You need serious capital, a real team, and a strategy that doesn't involve $5,000 pitch competitions." He pulled out a pen and scribbled a name and number on the back of a business card. "This is a friend of mine. He runs a mentorship program for seed-stage startups. Tell him I sent you. He'll tear your plan to shreds, but if you listen, he'll help you build it back up into something fundable." He handed her the card. "Don't give up on this," he said, his eyes meeting hers with a surprising intensity. "You've got something real." And then he walked away. Ava looked down at the card in her trembling hand. It wasn't a check, it wasn't a trophy, and it wasn't a promise of success. But it was something more important. It was validation. A single powerful glimmer of hope from someone who knew what they were talking about. For the first time, she wasn't just working on a project. She was the founder of a company with potential. The fire inside her roared back to life, brighter and stronger than ever before. Following Robert Peterson's advice, Ava plunged into a grueling 6-month mentorship program. The man whose name was on the card, a grizzled tech veteran named David Chen, was just as ruthless as Peterson had promised. He dismantled her business plan, her marketing strategy, and even her presentation style. He forced her to think bigger, to be bolder, and to defend her vision with unshakable data and confidence. It was the most challenging and transformative period of her life. She emerged with a polished pitch deck, a robust financial model, and a newfound sense of command. David, impressed by her resilience and the brilliance of her product, made a call. "There's a networking event next week," he told her. "The Digital Vanguard Mixer. It's not for fundraising, it's for networking. All the big players will be there, but they're not looking for pitches. They're looking for conversations. Go talk to people. Be interesting. Don't sell, connect." The event was held in a sleek, glass-walled skyscraper overlooking the city. The atmosphere was a world away from the university auditorium. Here the air buzzed with quiet power and influence. Men and women in impeccably tailored clothes spoke in hushed tones, their conversations punctuated by knowing laughter. Ava, in her best thrift store blazer, felt her old insecurities creep back in. She was a guppy in a tank full of sharks. She grabbed a glass of sparkling water, her hand shaking slightly, and tried to look like she belonged. She made a few awkward attempts at conversation, but most people's eyes glazed over the moment they realized she wasn't a name they recognized. She was about to retreat to a quiet corner when a man standing near the window looking out at the city lights caught her eye. He was older than most of the tech prodigies in the room, perhaps in his late 40s, with silvering temples and a calm, commanding presence that set him apart. He wasn't working the room or trying to impress anyone. He was just observing. Something about his quiet confidence drew her in. Taking a breath, she walked over. "The city looks different from up here, doesn't it?" she said, her voice steadier than she expected. The man turned and she found herself looking into a pair of remarkably intelligent and perceptive eyes. "It does," he said, his voice a low, pleasant baritone. "It makes you feel like you can see the whole system working, all the interconnected parts." It was an unusual, thoughtful response. Intrigued, Ava replied, "I think about that a lot, how systems work, how to make them more efficient, more intuitive." A flicker of interest crossed his face. "In what context?" "In the context of our daily lives." Ava said, the passion for her project bubbling up. "We have all this technology meant to simplify things, but mostly it just creates more noise, more digital clutter. We're not managing our technology, it's managing us." The man nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on her. "That's a very astute observation. Most people here are focused on creating the next piece of noise. How would you fix it?" For the next 20 minutes, they stood by the window completely engrossed in conversation. Ava forgot she was supposed to be networking. She didn't mention her company, her pitch deck, or her need for funding. She just talked about her ideas, her philosophy on the intersection of technology and human behavior. She spoke of creating a system that didn't just manage tasks, but understood, intent, a technology that felt less like a tool and more like an extension of one's own mind. The man who introduced himself only as Nathaniel listened intently. He didn't interrupt. He just asked sharp, insightful questions that pushed her to articulate her vision more clearly than ever before. He understood the complex, theoretical underpinnings of her work in a way no one else had. "This predictive algorithm you're describing," he said, "it would require a level of machine learning that's still largely theoretical. The processing power alone would be immense." "It is," Ava agreed. "But I've developed a new compression model for the data sets. It streamlines the learning process, making it faster and far more efficient. It's the core of the whole system." He looked at her, a strange, impressed expression on his face. The flow of their conversation was interrupted when a young, eager entrepreneur approached them. "Mr. Reed, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say what an honor it is." Ava's blood went cold. Reed, Nathaniel Reed. She wasn't just talking to some thoughtful guest. She was talking to the Nathaniel Reed, the legendary billionaire investor, a titan of the tech industry, known for his Midas touch and his almost mythical ability to spot the next big thing. He was the keynote speaker at nearly every major tech conference, a man whose opinion could make or break a company with a single sentence. Nathaniel gave the young man a polite but brief nod before turning his attention back to Ava. "My apologies," he said, as if the interruption was an inconvenience. He pulled a simple, elegant business card from his pocket. It had nothing on it but his name, a phone number, and an email address. "I am genuinely intrigued by your ideas, Ms. Monroe." Ava managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. "Ava Monroe." "Ms. Monroe," he said, handing her the card. "My assistant will be in touch to schedule a meeting. I'd like to hear more about this compression model." He gave her a small, enigmatic smile, and then turned to melt back into the crowd, leaving Ava standing by the window, her heart pounding against her ribs. She looked down at the simple card in her hand. It felt impossibly heavy, like the weight of a future she had never dared to imagine. She hadn't pitched. She hadn't sold. She had just been herself. And it had been enough. The email arrived the next morning as promised. It was from Nathaniel Reed's executive assistant inviting Ava to his office for a meeting the following Wednesday. The address wasn't a flashy corporate headquarters, but a discreet private office in a historic downtown building. Ava spent the next week in a state of controlled panic and feverish preparation. This wasn't a local pitch competition or a mentorship session. This was the major leagues. She rehearsed her presentation until her voice was raw, pouring over every line of code and every financial projection, determined to be ready for anything. On the day of the meeting, she walked into a space that was the epitome of understated power. The office was lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with worn volumes on history, philosophy, and science. There was no giant desk, only a comfortable seating area around a low wooden table. Nathaniel Reed was sitting in an armchair, dressed not in a suit, but in a simple cashmere sweater, reading a book. He looked up as she entered and smiled warmly. "Ava, please come in. Can I get you some coffee?" His disarming demeanor immediately put her at ease. The meeting was nothing like she had expected. There was no panel of stone-faced executives. It was just him. And he didn't want to see her pitch deck. "I've read your business plan," he said, gesturing to a tablet on the table. "David Chen sent it over. It's impressive. Thorough. But plans are just theories. I want to understand the architect. I want to understand you." For the next 3 hours they talked. He asked her about her background, her education, why she had stopped working, and what drove her to create Aura. Ava found herself telling him everything, not the curated professional version, but the real story. She told him about her passion for coding, her decade-long marriage, the constant belittling of her ambitions, and the crushing loneliness after the divorce. She explained how Aura wasn't just a business idea, it was her reclamation of her own identity. Nathaniel listened without judgment, his expression one of deep, empathetic concentration. When she was finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Many people can build a product, Ava," he said finally, his voice soft. "But very few people build something from their own resilience. The most powerful companies aren't born from spreadsheets. They're born from a founder's obsession to solve a problem they understand intimately. You're not just building an app, you're trying to create order out of the chaos you've experienced." He then shifted gears, and the mentor replaced the empath. He began to question her, his inquiries drilling down into the very heart of her technology. He was relentless, his intellect razor-sharp. He challenged her assumptions, poked holes in her logic, and forced her to defend her creation from every conceivable angle. It was the most intense intellectual examination she had ever undergone. But far from being intimidated, Ava felt exhilarated. She met every question with a confident answer, her passion and expertise shining through. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Your compression model is revolutionary," he said. "It's the key. It's not just an improvement on existing tech. It's a paradigm shift. That's what I invest in." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "I'm going to make you an offer, Ava. I'm not going to fund your company." Ava's heart plummeted. She felt the blood drain from her face. Nathaniel turned back to her, a twinkle in his eye. "I'm going to partner with you. I'm going to give you seed funding, $10 million for a 25% stake in Aura Innovations. But more than that, I'm going to give you access to my resources, my legal team, my engineers, my network. We are going to build this together." Ava was speechless. $10 million. It was a number so vast, so far beyond her wildest dreams, that it didn't even sound real. Tears welled in her eyes. Tears not of sadness, but of overwhelming, staggering relief. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Say you'll accept," Nathaniel said with a gentle smile. "Say you're ready to show the world what you've built." She nodded, unable to speak, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. The months that followed were a whirlwind. With Nathaniel's backing, Aura Innovations was born. Ava moved out of her tiny apartment and into a sleek, modern office space. She hired a small, brilliant team of engineers who looked at her with respect and awe. She was no longer a freelancer struggling to pay rent. She was a CEO, a founder, a visionary. Nathaniel was true to his word. He was more than an investor. He was a mentor and a champion. He pushed her, challenged her, but also protected her, guiding her through the treacherous waters of the tech world. He helped her navigate contracts, recruit top talent, and refine their go-to-market strategy. A profound respect grew between them, built on a shared intellectual curiosity and a mutual admiration for each other's minds. Ava blossomed. Shedding the last vestiges of the timid, uncertain woman she had been, she grew into her role with confidence and grace. She was a natural leader, inspiring her team with her clear vision and unwavering passion. The ghost of Mark Callahan and his cutting words faded, becoming a distant, irrelevant memory from another lifetime. She was finally completely Ava Monroe. While Ava was building an empire, Mark Callahan was busy enjoying the spoils of what he still considered his victory. The first year after the divorce was a celebration of his freedom. He sold the grand mansion, too many memories, he told his friends, and moved into a lavish penthouse apartment downtown with panoramic city views. He dated a string of women, all young, beautiful, and impressed by his wealth. His business, Callahan Imports, seemed to be thriving, and he made sure everyone knew it. He rarely, if ever, thought of Ava. When he did, it was with a vague sense of pity. He imagined her struggling in some drab apartment, working a menial job, a sad testament to her inability to function without him. He had heard from a mutual acquaintance that she was trying to start some little computer thing, and he had chuckled. It was so predictably Ava clinging to her pathetic little hobbies. He felt a sense of magnanimous satisfaction, confident that he had been right about her all along. He had escaped, and he had won. But as the second year began, subtle cracks started to appear in his perfect world. A series of bad investments soured, taking a significant bite out of his capital. A new competitor in the import market was undercutting his prices, and his profits were shrinking. The thrill of his bachelor lifestyle began to wear thin. The endless parties and superficial dates left him feeling hollow, a stark contrast to the genuine partnership he had once long ago taken for granted. It was during a lunch meeting with a potential client that he first heard the name. The client, a savvy young tech investor, was talking about the hottest new startup on the scene. "You've got to keep an eye on Aura Innovations," the investor said, his voice buzzing with excitement. "What they're doing with predictive AI is going to change everything. It's the most elegant machine learning protocol I've ever seen, and the story behind it is incredible." Mark feigned interest, nodding along. "Aura never heard of them." "You will," the investor assured him. "They've been in stealth mode, but they're backed by Nathaniel Reed. You know what that means. Anything he touches turns to gold. They're set to do a major public launch at the Innovate Forward Summit next month. It's the most anticipated debut in years. They say the founder is some kind of quiet genius who came out of nowhere." The name Aura snagged at Mark's memory. It sounded familiar, but he couldn't place it. He dismissed it as a coincidence. The tech world was full of trendy, meaningless names. Still, the conversation left him with a strange feeling of unease. Nathaniel Reed's involvement was a big deal, the kind of deal Mark used to fantasize about for his own company. A week later, he saw the name again, this time in a major business journal. A feature article was titled, "The Aura Enigma: How Nathaniel Reed's New Protege is Set to Redefine Personal Technology." The article was filled with breathless praise for the company's revolutionary software, but it was frustratingly vague about the founder respecting their desire to remain private until the official launch. The founder was referred to only as A. Monroe. Mark stared at the initial and surname. A. Monroe. It couldn't be. He tried to laugh it off. The world was full of people with the last name Monroe. It was a ridiculous, impossible coincidence. His Ava, the woman who couldn't even manage their household budget, the woman whose big idea was a digital organizer. It was laughable. Yet a seed of doubt had been planted. He found himself secretly searching for information online. He found think pieces and blog posts speculating about Aura's technology, all echoing the same sentiment: it was a game changer. He saw the company's minimalist logo, a stylized A, and felt a cold knot form in his stomach. It was the same design he had once seen sketched in the margins of one of Ava's notebooks, a sketch he had teased her about. He started asking around his social circle. Have you heard of a tech founder named Ava Monroe? Most people hadn't, but one friend, a banker who moved in tech circles, had. Monroe? Yes, I think so, the friend said thoughtfully. Heard she's brilliant. Keeps a very low profile. Reed has her under wraps until the big launch at the summit. Why do you ask? No reason? Mark said, forcing a casual tone. Just a name I heard. He went home that night and poured himself a stiff drink, his penthouse feeling less like a palace and more like a cage. He looked out at the city lights, the same view Nathaniel and Ava had shared months ago. The pieces were clicking into place, forming a picture he refused to accept. His quiet, dependent, hobby-loving ex-wife couldn't be the quiet genius backed by a legendary billionaire. It was impossible. It had to be. He decided he would attend the Innovate Forward Summit. He needed to see for himself. He needed to put this absurd rumor to rest so he could go back to enjoying the life he had so decisively won. The Innovate Forward Tech Summit was the premier event of the year, a dazzling spectacle of ambition and capital. The main hall was a sea of industry leaders, venture capitalists, journalists, and hopeful entrepreneurs, all buzzing with an electric anticipation. Mark Callahan moved through the crowd, feeling a familiar surge of importance. This was his world, or at least it used to be. Today, however, he wasn't here as a confident player. He was here as a nervous spectator, a man haunted by an unbelievable possibility. He secured a seat with a clear view of the stage, his heart hammering against his ribs. The lights dimmed and a hush fell over the auditorium. The summit's host walked on stage and began the introduction for the keynote address, the most anticipated moment of the entire conference. For months, the tech world has been whispering about one company, one innovation poised to change the very fabric of our digital lives. The host's voice boomed. A company nurtured in stealth, guided by one of the most brilliant investment minds of our time. It is my profound honor to welcome to the stage the visionary, the legend, Mr. Nathaniel Reed. Nathaniel walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He exuded a quiet, powerful charisma that immediately commanded the room. Mark watched, his mouth dry. This was the man who was supposedly backing Ava. It felt surreal. Nathaniel began his speech not with hype, but with a thoughtful analysis of the future of technology. He spoke of the need for innovation that served humanity, not distracted it. He was captivating, his words holding the entire audience in a trance. Mark found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word. For the past year, Nathaniel said, his voice dropping slightly, I have had the privilege of working alongside a founder who embodies this principle. A founder who possessed a vision so clear, so powerful, that it reminded me of why I entered this industry in the first place. We've all heard the rumors and the speculation about Aura Innovations. Today, the speculation ends. He paused, letting the tension build. The air was thick with it. Aura is not just another product. It is a new technological paradigm. It's a system that learns, adapts, and anticipates, freeing up our most valuable resource, our time and our mental energy. But the technology, as brilliant as it is only half the story. The other half is the architect behind it. Nathaniel smiled, a genuine, proud smile that reached his eyes. She came to me not with a slick pitch, but with a powerful idea born from personal conviction. She has built this company from the ground up with a rare combination of genius, resilience, and unwavering integrity. It is my great honor to introduce you to the founder and CEO of Aura Innovations, Ms. Ava Monroe. The name hit Mark like a physical blow. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. He couldn't breathe. The polite applause in the room sounded like a roaring in his ears. Through a haze of disbelief, he watched as a figure emerged from the side of the stage. It was Ava. But it wasn't the Ava he knew. The timid, hesitant woman who would shrink under his critical gaze was gone. In her place stood a woman of incredible poise and confidence. She was dressed in a simple, elegant dark blue dress, her hair styled professionally, her expression calm and assured. She didn't look like an imposter on the world stage. She looked like she owned it. She shook Nathaniel's hand and turned to face the audience, a small, confident smile on her lips. A giant screen behind her lit up with the sleek A logo he now knew so well. "Thank you, Nathaniel," she said into the microphone, her voice clear and strong without a hint of the tremor he remembered. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Ava Monroe, and I'm here to talk about the future of intuitive technology." Mark sat frozen in his seat, invisible in the darkened auditorium, yet feeling as though 1,000 spotlights were searing his skin. He watched, utterly mesmerized, as she commanded the stage. She was brilliant. She was articulate, funny, and passionate. She explained the complex algorithms of Aura in a way that was accessible and inspiring. She didn't just present a product, she presented a new vision for the future. The audience was captivated. The bored expressions Mark had seen on judges at that small competition were replaced by looks of awe and intense focus on the faces of the most powerful people in the industry. They weren't just listening. They were witnessing the birth of a star. He saw the way Nathaniel Reed looked at her, not with romantic interest, but with a deep, profound respect that was almost paternal. He was a mentor who had found his prodigy. The realization was a dagger to Mark's heart. He hadn't just underestimated Ava, he had been utterly and completely blind to who she was. The cute hobby he had mocked, the little project he had dismissed, it was a revolution, and he had let it walk out the door for a pittance. The presentation ended with a live demo that drew gasps from the audience. As Aura flawlessly rescheduled a hypothetical CEO's chaotic week in a matter of seconds, the room erupted in a standing ovation. Mark remained seated, a statue of regret, amidst a sea of celebration. The sound of the applause was a judgment, a deafening verdict on his own failure. He hadn't won the divorce. He had lost everything that mattered. The aftermath of the keynote was a frenzy. As soon as Ava and Nathaniel left the stage, they were swarmed by a crush of journalists, investors, and industry giants, all clamoring for a moment of her time. Mark watched from a distance as she handled the deluge with an effortless grace that was entirely new to him. She was no longer his quiet, unassuming wife. She was a force. He felt a desperate, irrational need to talk to her. What he would say, he didn't know. Apologize. Congratulate her. Beg. His mind was a chaotic storm of regret and disbelief. He slipped out of the auditorium and waited in the grand glass-walled lobby, knowing she would eventually have to pass through. After what felt like an eternity, she emerged flanked by Nathaniel Reed and a small security detail. She was laughing at something Nathaniel had said, her face bright and animated. She looked happier and more alive than Mark had ever seen her in their 10 years of marriage. The sight was another twist of the knife. He stepped forward, calling her name. Ava. Her laughter died on her lips. She stopped and turned, her expression shifting from radiant joy to a cool, unreadable neutrality as her eyes met his. The warmth vanished, replaced by the polite indifference one might show a stranger. "Mark," she said, her tone level. "What are you doing here?" I saw the presentation," he stammered, feeling foolish and small under her calm gaze. "It was incredible. I had no idea." A small, ironic smile touched her lips. "No," she said softly, "you didn't." Nathaniel Reed stood beside her, his presence a silent, protective barrier. He looked at Mark not with anger, but with a kind of detached pity that was somehow worse. He recognized him for what he was, a relic from a past his protégé had long since transcended. "Ava, we need to talk," Mark pleaded, taking a step closer. "What you've done, it's amazing. I'm so sorry. For everything. I was an idiot. I didn't see you. I didn't see what you were capable of." "What is it you want, Mark?" she asked, her voice devoid of the anger or hurt he had expected. That was the most painful part. There was nothing. No bitterness, no lingering resentment. Just a calm finality. She had moved on so completely that he no longer had the power to hurt her. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice cracking. Maybe there's a way I can be a part of this. I have business experience. I could help. I could invest." The word sounded pathetic even to his own ears. He was a struggling importer offering to help a $10 million startup backed by a billionaire. Ava looked at him, and for the first time he saw a flicker of emotion in her eyes. It was pity. "You had a chance to be a part of this, Mark," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You were there for 10 years while I was building the foundation. You could have been my partner. You could have been the one standing beside me on that stage. But you didn't want a partner. You wanted a subordinate. You didn't want to build my dream. You wanted me to decorate yours." Every word was the truth, and it cut him to the core. "The settlement I signed," she continued, "the one you thought was so generous it gave me one thing you never could, the freedom to become myself. You didn't lose anything in our divorce, Mark, because you can't lose something you never valued in the first place." She gestured to the company, the success, the new life around her. "This isn't a victory over you. It's a victory for me. It has nothing to do with you anymore." With a final polite nod, she turned and walked away, Nathaniel Reed at her side. Mark stood alone in the center of the glass hall, the sounds of the summit fading into a dull roar. He finally understood. His win in the divorce was the biggest loss of his life. He had fought for the house, the money, the tangible assets. He thought he had secured his future by getting rid of his dependent wife. But he had been the dependent one all along, propped up by an inheritance he didn't earn and blind to the true genius living under his own roof. Ava walked away with almost nothing, but she had carried the future with her, locked away in her mind and her notebooks. He was left with an empty penthouse, a struggling business, and the crushing public knowledge of his own monumental stupidity. He thought he had won, but he was just the fool who had thrown away the diamond, convinced it was nothing but a worthless stone. And so Mark Callahan's victory became his public shame. Ava Monroe's story wasn't one of revenge, but of powerful self-realization. She proved that true value isn't found in bank accounts or material possessions, but in the untapped potential that lies within us. Her journey from a belittled wife to a titan of industry is a stunning reminder that sometimes the greatest wins come directly after our most devastating losses. It shows that the people who underestimate us are often giving us the greatest gift, the motivation to prove them and ourselves just how wrong they were. What did you think of Ava's incredible transformation? Have you ever had a moment where you realized your own strength after someone counted you out? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If this story inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Click the notification bell so you never miss an update.
Mistress texted the millionaire at 2 a.m. His pregnant wife was lying next to him. Mia's world froze when she heard her husband's phone buzz at 2 in the morning. The faint glow lit up his face. Oliver Harding, a man she believed was devoted to her and their unborn child. A surge of cold dread rippled through her pregnant body. She didn't want to check his phone, but the fear of secrets gnawed at her. When Mia finally glanced at the screen, a single text message shattered her blissful illusion. In that moment, the heavy truth loomed. He had a mistress. What was supposed to be a peaceful night revealed the hidden cracks in a perfect life. Mia Harding had always considered herself someone who lived a charmed life. Not because she was born into money, she wasn't, but because she believed in love, hard work, and good karma. She and Oliver had met when they were both struggling entrepreneurs in their 20s. Mia worked as a freelance marketer, learning the ins and outs of social media promotion and brand building. Oliver was brimming with untested ideas for a new tech startup. Their synergy was immediate. Mia taught Oliver how to pitch to investors in a way that appealed to emotions as well as numbers, and Oliver introduced Mia to the possibility of dreaming bigger than she'd ever thought possible. Their love story felt like it belonged in a fairy tale. They first crossed paths at a small networking event. Mia was carrying a stack of freshly printed business cards that spelled her name incorrectly Maya, instead of Mia, because she had run out and printed them in a last-minute rush. Oliver, noticing her predicament, joked that it gave her an exotic air. She couldn't help but laugh, and in that moment they connected over a shared sense of humor and the spark of possibility. Things accelerated quickly. They discovered they shared an obsession with late-night coffee shops. Often, after finishing a day of chasing clients and perfecting pitch decks, the two of them would end up at a 24-hour cafe by the waterfront, sipping lattes and scribbling grand ideas on napkins. Once, they nearly missed sunrise because they were so engrossed in brainstorming what would eventually become Oliver's first successful tech platform. They promised each other that if their careers took off, they would never abandon these small moments together. In time, Oliver's business exploded. His platform for streamlining online payments gained traction, luring big-name investors. Mia's marketing instincts and network connections spurred that growth. Both were unstoppable. A few years later, they got married in a modest church ceremony witnessed by close family and friends, most of whom had been around to see them struggle. It was a testament to love and partnership built on trust, ambition, and sincere devotion. Now, 10 years later, Oliver Harding was a millionaire several times over, possibly flirting with billionaire territory if all went well with the next round of investments. Mia had left the freelance world to become an integral part of Oliver's empire, though they liked to maintain the narrative that they both had built it from the ground up. While Oliver's face dominated the news articles and social media feeds, it was Mia who orchestrated everything behind the scenes. She preferred a quiet life, handling marketing strategies and philanthropic efforts that put the Harding name in good standing. Together, they navigated high society events and philanthropic galas with practiced ease. Finally, they decided the time was right to start a family. Mia was nearly 6 months pregnant when life took a turn she never saw coming. She thought the only big question before them was how they would balance Oliver's hectic travel schedule with caring for a newborn. They were designing a nursery light yellow, unisex colors because Mia refused to know the baby's sex before birth. Everything seemed magical until that fateful night. The plush bedroom they shared was normally Mia's sanctuary. She had insisted on soft neutrals, creamy whites, pastel blues, and gentle greys to keep the environment calm. Their bed, a four-poster with gossamer drapes, felt both regal and comforting. That night, Mia had trouble sleeping because the baby was particularly active. She nestled into the duvet, listening to Oliver's steady breathing. He seemed at peace. In the quiet darkness, she tried to focus on positive thoughts about the future. Then she heard it, a subtle vibration followed by a muted chiming sound. Oliver's phone screen flashed. He turned in his sleep, but didn't wake. Mia felt that familiar swirl of anxiety stir in her chest. Ordinarily, she would ignore it. Being a high-level CEO, Oliver received messages at odd hours. The time difference between his office and the overseas teams made late-night notifications a norm. Yet something about this particular buzz felt different. Mia told herself to settle down. She breathed deeply. But the baby started kicking, seemingly aligned with her own sense of dread. She reached for her phone on the nightstand to distract herself with mindless scrolling, but she had left it in the living room earlier. As she turned onto her side, she saw Oliver's phone glow again. A second notification. Her heart pounded. She clenched her pillow, half ashamed at her own curiosity. She wasn't the kind of wife who pried into her husband's private messages. She had always trusted him. but it was 2 a.m., and something primal tugged at her. She felt an inexplicable push to pick up the phone. Mia reached out tentatively, reminding herself that she was only checking if it was an urgent message from their overseas team. After all, she had every right to ensure everything was okay. Oliver was a public figure. Any crisis would affect them both. As her fingers brushed the screen, the phone lit up, revealing a single name, Isabel Pierce. The preview line read, "I can't sleep, thinking about tonight." Mia's hand began to tremble. She recognized that name. Isabel Pierce was a young socialite who had appeared in a few of Oliver's philanthropic events. Mia had always found her to be charming, albeit slightly too flirtatious for comfort. But Oliver had assured her that Isabel was simply a contact in the philanthropic circuit, nothing more. Now, at 2 a.m., that assumption shattered. Mia's eyes darted to her husband, still sleeping calmly, blissfully unaware that his carefully woven story was unraveling. She pressed her trembling lips together, trying to steady herself. Fear, jealousy, and heartbreak collided in her chest. She wanted to fling the phone across the room. She wanted to wake Oliver up and demand answers. She wanted to pretend she had never seen it. A dozen conflicting impulses warred inside her. Before she could process, the phone vibrated again. This time, the text preview read, "I miss you. When will you tell her?" Mia's breath caught in her throat. The air in the room felt stifling, as though her entire reality had just lost its foundation. She feared the adrenaline surging through her body might harm her unborn baby. She placed a protective hand over her stomach, whispering a silent apology to the little life within. She fought the urge to scream. Instead, she crawled out of bed, phone in hand, and headed into the ensuite bathroom, shutting the door behind her as gently as possible. In the warm glow of the bathroom light, she stared at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. Her auburn hair was messy, her eyes wide with betrayal. She touched the phone screen again, breathing raggedly. Another text arrived. "Isabel, you said you wanted me to be patient, but I can't share you anymore." With trembling hands, Mia scrolled upward. She saw messages that dated back a few weeks, some with time stamps in the middle of the day, others late at night. Texts that hinted at dinners, secret meetups, undisclosed trips she had known nothing about. Overwhelmed, she nearly dropped the phone. Gasping for air, she locked the screen and set it on the bathroom counter. She closed her eyes, pressing both hands to her cheeks, hot tears streaming down. A single question burned in her mind. How could Oliver do this to her? Through the initial shock, she knew she needed to calm down. The baby was her priority. She took slow, deep breaths. She had never felt more alone. The next morning, Mia woke up, and for a split second, she wondered if the entire incident had been a terrible dream. Then she noticed Oliver's phone wasn't on his nightstand. He must have picked it up at some point in the early hours. Mia's stomach churned when she saw him standing by the window, already dressed for the day in a crisp, tailored suit. His posture was tense. He turned to look at her, his expression guarded. "Morning," he said, placing his phone into his jacket pocket, a little too quickly. She swallowed the knot in her throat. "Morning." For a moment, neither spoke. Tension hung in the air like a fog that refused to lift. Oliver cleared his throat. I got some texts last night. From work," he lied, the hesitation in his voice betraying him. "I need to go to the office early." Mia swung her legs over the side of the bed, her eyes stinging from lack of sleep. She wanted to confront him, but the words caught in her throat. The mere thought of saying, "I know what you did" out loud felt like stepping off a cliff into an abyss. She forced a nod. "Right, I'll see you later," he lingered, possibly expecting her to protest. When she didn't, he leaned down, pressed a kiss to her temple, and whispered, "I love you, Mia." Then he left the room. She stared at the closed door, knowing his words rang hollow. She reminded herself that she had to stay calm. This was no longer just about her heartbreak. It was also about the innocent life she carried. Her mind raced. She needed time to think, to plan her next move, to figure out if she could confront Oliver or if she should gather more information. Part of her wanted to pack her bags and leave, but the other part needed to understand how deep this betrayal went. In the hours that followed, she busied herself with tasks. She tried to distract her mind by checking philanthropic event invites, emailing sponsors, and sorting through baby gifts that had started arriving from well-wishers. Each tiny romper and plush toy reminded her of the innocence and purity of a child's love, something so different from the deception swirling in her life right now. Several times she caught herself softly crying, quickly wiping away tears, as if wiping away the evidence that her world was crumbling. She decided she needed to confide in someone. So she picked up her phone and called her best friend, Lillian Chan. They had been roommates in college, forging an unbreakable bond. Lillian was now a successful lawyer, handling corporate contracts. If anyone could offer logical advice without emotionally exploding, it was Lillian. Within the hour, Lillian was at the house. She found Mia in the living room, red-eyed and hugging a pillow. Without a word, Lillian enveloped her in a comforting hug. They sat on the couch, and Mia explained everything, how she found the texts, the mistress's name, the shock she felt. Tears streamed down Mia's face as she spoke, and Lillian listened with a stoic, supportive presence. Finally, she offered a tissue. "Mia, you don't deserve this," Lillian said. Her tone had the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. "He's risking everything, his marriage, his reputation, and he's doing it while you're pregnant." Mia wiped her eyes. "I know, but what do I do?" Lillian paused, carefully choosing her words. "First, you need clarity. You need to know how serious this affair is, and what Oliver intends to do. But don't forget your own power. You're not just Oliver Harding's wife. You're half the reason he's successful. You have as much stake in this empire as he does." Mia's chin trembled. "I feel so powerless, though." "That's how shock makes you feel," Lillian said gently, placing a comforting hand on Mia's shoulder. "You're strong, but don't rush into anything. For now, see what Oliver says if you confront him. Hear his explanation. Maybe there's more to the story." She gave Mia a sympathetic look, though I doubt it. Mia nodded, hugging the pillow tighter. This was her castle, built on years of love and trust. And now she realized the foundation was made of glass. She felt it cracking beneath her feet. The question was whether to salvage it or let it all shatter. A week passed. Mia watched Oliver carefully. He came home later than usual, took more phone calls in private, and seemed distant, as though a part of him was always elsewhere. She tried to bring up the subject, but each time she opened her mouth, fear silenced her. She worried about the confrontation turning ugly. She worried about the stress on her pregnancy. She worried that their carefully curated world would come crashing down. Meanwhile, the messages from Isabel continued. Mia occasionally glimpsed them when Oliver forgot to silence his phone. The texts were never explicit enough to confirm the full nature of their relationship, but they dripped with emotional intimacy. Words like "I miss you" or "I need to feel your arms around me again." Mia felt nauseous each time. She ate less, but forced herself to maintain some semblance of a healthy diet for the baby. Lillian checked on her daily, urging her to have the talk with Oliver. One afternoon, Mia decided she needed a distraction. She drove to their favorite local boutique to browse for nursery items. On the way in, she glanced at her phone and saw an email notification from the charity board she served on. The subject line read, "Upcoming Gala Planning Meeting hosted by Isabel Pierce." Mia almost dropped her phone. So, Isabel was hosting a charitable gala in the next week. Mia's mind spun. She realized that Oliver had mentioned an upcoming gala, casually remarking that he had work obligations that night. He hadn't, however, mentioned the name of the host. A surge of determination coursed through Mia. She decided to attend that gala. She had every right to be there. She was part of the charity board, after all, and she was curious about who exactly this, Isabel Pierce, was behind the mask of a philanthropic socialite. That might give her the information she needed for the confrontation that loomed on the horizon. With renewed focus, Mia left the boutique and headed home to prepare her attendance. She emailed the organizers to confirm her spot, even though she was expected as a board member. Then she texted Lillian, the first going to the Pierce Gala, "Need moral support. You in?" Lillian's reply was immediate, "Absolutely. Let's do this." The night of the gala arrived quickly. Mia dressed in an elegant but loose-fitting gown that accommodated her pregnancy. She chose a midnight blue chiffon that draped gracefully, a silent statement that she was still the poised, strong wife of Oliver Harding. Her hair was swept into a simple updo. Her makeup was subtle but accented her features with a quiet confidence. Lillian arrived in a sleek black cocktail dress, her fierce aura providing an invisible shield around Mia. They entered the extravagant venue, a luxury hotel ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers, white floral arrangements, and subtle mood lighting. It was the kind of upscale event Mia and Oliver had attended countless times. The difference tonight was that Mia was on a mission. Across the room she spotted Oliver. Her heart lurched. He was speaking to a small circle of investors, wearing a tailored tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. He held a glass of champagne in one hand. His polished, confident smile, usually her source of pride, now felt like a blade twisting in her heart. Standing near him was a tall, striking woman in a shimmering silver gown. Her long, blonde hair cascaded down her back. That had to be Isabel Pierce. Mia's chest tightened. Lillian placed a hand on her shoulder. "Breathe," she whispered. "You can do this." Mia nodded, exhaling slowly. She navigated the crowd with practiced ease, exchanging polite greetings with other board members and donors. She made her way to Oliver and Isabel, making sure her approach wasn't obvious. She lingered by a nearby table where hors d'oeuvres were being served. She watched as Isabel touched Oliver's arm while laughing at something he said. Mia noted the way Oliver's gaze lingered on Isabel, the subtle tension in his posture, indicating he was hyper-aware of the younger woman's presence. Mia's nails bit into her palm. This woman was no figment of her imagination. She was real, vibrant, and dangerously close to her husband. Suddenly, Oliver turned, and their eyes locked. His expression faltered. He clearly hadn't expected to see Mia here. Quickly, he composed himself and excused himself from the group to approach her. "Mia, I didn't know you'd be attending," Oliver said, forcing a casual tone. He offered a quick glance at Lillian, who nodded politely. Mia held her ground, determined to keep her emotions under control. "I'm on the board, Oliver." "Of course I'm here." Oliver cleared his throat. "Right. Yes, of course. Sorry, it's been so busy. I must have forgotten to mention it." Before Mia could respond, Isabel joined them. Up close, Mia had to concede that the woman was breathtaking, flawless complexion, piercing blue eyes, and an air of quiet confidence. She offered a courteous smile. "Miss S. Harding, it's lovely to see you," she said, her voice carrying a practiced graciousness. She turned to Lillian, giving her an equally polite greeting, then quickly refocused on Mia. "I'm thrilled you could make it tonight. It's an honor to have such high-profile donors supporting this cause." Mia fought the urge to glare. Instead, she forced a polite smile, her tone steely. "The cause is indeed important. I'm happy to support it." Isabel flicked her gaze toward Oliver. A barely perceptible tension passed between them, like a secret only they shared. Mia caught it. Lillian must have noticed too, because Mia felt Lillian's hand discreetly touch her back in solidarity. Throughout the evening, Mia observed Oliver and Isabel. They tried to keep their distance in public, exchanging only polite pleasantries when in view. But from the corner of her eye, Mia saw them slip away together once or twice, heading down the corridor or stepping onto the balcony. Each time, Mia felt a stab of pain, but also a cold anger. The illusions were fading. This was real. The mistress wasn't just a name in Oliver's phone. She was flesh and blood, weaving her way into Mia's circle. When the formal presentations concluded, people began to mingle more casually. Mia stuck close to Lillian, who looked ready to pounce at the slightest provocation. Eventually, Mia mustered the courage to approach Isabel alone. She found her near the lavish dessert table. "Miss Pierce," Mia greeted in a tone laced with subtle challenge. Isabel turned, feigning surprise. "Miss S. Harding, is everything all right? You seem tense." Mia took a shaky breath. "I'm sure you're aware that Oliver and I are expecting a child." Isabel's composure faltered just enough to confirm her guilt. "Yes, that's wonderful news," she said, her voice a little too stiff. "Oliver is thrilled." Mia's heart thundered. She chose her words carefully, unwilling to cause a scene, but desperate for the truth. "If you ever want to discuss anything, if there's something you think I should know, perhaps it's better. We speak woman to woman rather than through whispered corridors." A flash of discomfort crossed Isabel's face. The flicker in her eyes betrayed that she knew exactly what Mia was getting at. Then, as if steeling herself, Isabel's lips curled into a tight smile. "I don't know what you mean, Mrs. Harding, but if there's anything you wish to address, perhaps you should speak to your husband first." Mia's calm facade wavered. "I will. Count on it." She turned on her heel and left before her composure broke. Lillian quickly joined her, seeing the distress. They left the gala soon after, with Mia harboring a grim certainty. Isabel Pierce was indeed Oliver's mistress, and she wasn't stepping aside quietly. Later that night, Oliver returned home after the gala, presumably expecting an argument. He found Mia sitting in the living room, lights dimmed, her hands clasped over her belly protectively. Oliver loosened his tie, a storm of guilt and anxiety etched on his face. "Mia," he began softly. She cut him off. "Sit down." Her voice trembled, but it carried a weight of determination. He obeyed, sinking onto the couch opposite hers. A long silence followed. Mia stared at him, remembering all the good times, the trust, the devotion. She forced herself not to cry. If she started, she might not stop. "I know about the messages," she said, her tone subdued but firm. "I know about Isabel." Oliver closed his eyes, a flash of pain crossing his features. He didn't deny it. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what? For hurting me? For risking our marriage? For endangering our child's future? Or sorry you got caught?" Her voice grew icy, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, looking genuinely tormented. "Mia, I never wanted this. Isabel and I, things got complicated. I was traveling a lot, working insane hours, and I felt disconnected. She was there, offering me comfort." Mia inhaled sharply, her heartbreak woven with anger. "Comfort? While I'm here, pregnant with your child, supporting every aspect of your life. You needed comfort, Oliver? From her?" He rubbed his face with both hands. "I'm not making excuses. I was stupid, reckless. This was never supposed to become serious." She stood abruptly, nearly toppling a vase on the side table. The baby kicked, as if alarmed by her turmoil. Mia placed a hand on her stomach, trying to steady herself. "But it did become serious, didn't it?" Her voice cracked. "You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. Do you have any idea how sick I felt, seeing her tonight, watching you two vanish off to balconies and corridors?" He stood too, crossing the distance between them. "Mia, listen to me. I want to fix this. I made a mistake, a terrible one, but I want our family. I want to be with you." She looked at him, tears sliding down her cheeks now. "Then why haven't you ended it already? Why are there still late-night texts and secret meetings?" "Because I saw them, Oliver. He averted his gaze, shame coloring his features. Isabel, she's not ready to let go. She threatened to go public, to ruin everything if I ended it abruptly. Mia stared in disbelief. So you're telling me you're letting her blackmail you into continuing this affair? He paused, pressing his lips together. It's not that simple. Our business relies on these philanthropic circles. My reputation is everything. If she decides to sabotage me, we could lose investors, deals, everything we've built. Mia let out a bitter laugh. So, now you're worried about your precious image. She clenched her fists. What about our image, our marriage, my heart? Oliver reached for her hands, but she pulled away. His voice trembled. Please, I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Just give me some time. Don't leave me. Emotional exhaustion crashed over Mia. She turned away. Time. You want time? I'm pregnant, Oliver. Time is running out. I can't keep living like this, wondering if you'll sneak away for a clandestine meeting with your mistress. He took a shaky breath. I promise you I'll talk to her. I'll end it for good. I just need a plan to ensure she won't lash out publicly. Please, Mia, you have to trust me. She shook her head, tears blurring her vision. You've destroyed my trust. You'll have to earn it back. Without waiting for a response, she walked upstairs, leaving him alone in the dimly lit living room, a broken man in a broken marriage. Days turned into a tense standoff. Mia avoided Oliver as much as possible while he scrambled to find a way to sever ties with Isabel without igniting a scandal. He reached out to PR teams, lawyers, and advisors, trying to strategize the best approach if Isabel decided to go public. The mansion, once filled with warmth and the excitement of a baby's arrival, felt like a cold battleground of secrets and half-spoken truths. Lillian came by frequently, checking on Mia's emotional state. Mia confided that Oliver claimed he would end the affair, but hadn't yet. Lillian, protective and practical, suggested Mia think about her own security. She recommended Mia consult a family lawyer just to understand her options. Reluctantly, Mia agreed. She met with a discreet attorney, an old colleague of Lillian, who assured her that Mia was in a strong legal position. She could claim a significant portion of the marital assets if they divorced, and she had enough evidence to demonstrate Oliver's infidelity if a public battle ensued. But the attorney also cautioned that messy divorces rarely ended well, especially when so much wealth and publicity were involved. After much reflection, Mia realized she needed a decisive stance. She was done waiting for Oliver to fix the situation. If he truly wanted to save their marriage, he had to prove it. That evening, as the sun set behind the estate's expansive garden, Mia confronted Oliver in his study. He was on a phone call, presumably with another consultant about the Isabel situation. He ended the call hastily when he saw her come in. I can't live like this, Mia said bluntly, crossing her arms over her chest. She had come straight to the point. Either you end it with Isabel tonight or I'm leaving. Oliver shot out of his chair. Mia, No more excuses, she interrupted, her voice resolute. I want her out of our lives. Completely. Then you'll have to repair this marriage if you ever want me to trust you again. His eyes glistened with desperation. I already told you I'm working on it. She took a step closer, her tone unwavering. Work faster. You have until tomorrow morning to tell her it's over, or I walk out that door. Oliver exhaled sharply, sinking back into his chair. He gazed at her with a mix of guilt and pleading. All right, I'll do it. I'll call her tonight. Mia nodded curtly, turning on her heel. She reached the door, then paused. This is your only chance, Oliver. For me, for our baby. Then she left, her heart pounding with both hope and dread. Later that night, as Mia paced in the bedroom, she heard Oliver's muffled voice downstairs. Her heart hammered. This was the moment. Was he really ending it? She took deep, calming breaths, thinking of the baby. She told herself she had to trust, that Oliver would do the right thing. She heard the low hum of his voice, but couldn't make out the words. The conversation lasted nearly half an hour. Then, silence. Oliver walked in, looking weary, his tie loose around his neck. He leaned against the doorway. "It's done," he said softly. She was angry, furious in fact. Threatened to leak everything to the press, but I told her I'd take my chances. "I'm sorry it took so long, Mia." Relief mingled with lingering skepticism. Mia wanted to believe him, but doubt hovered. She nodded, her voice tight. "Thank you. Now we move forward, I guess." Oliver crossed the room and gently placed a hand on her belly. The baby kicked, as if sensing the tension. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry." Mia closed her eyes, exhaustion settling in her bones. "I know," she whispered back, not sure she believed it yet. But she wanted to, for the sake of their child, for the love that had once burned bright between them. She was willing to try. For a few days there was an uneasy calm. Oliver tried to make amends, spending more time at home, discussing nursery plans, even volunteering to attend prenatal classes with Mia. She saw glimpses of the man she fell in love with, a man with warmth, ambition, and a genuine heart. She allowed herself a sliver of cautious optimism until Isabel retaliated. One evening, Mia was in the kitchen preparing tea when her phone vibrated. An unknown number had sent her a flurry of messages. She froze as she read them. "Isabel, your husband is a liar. He's been begging me to keep quiet, but I'm tired of hiding. Isabel, I have photographs. I have messages that prove everything. Isabel, if you think he's done with me, you're deluding yourself. Isabel, you'll see everything on social media tomorrow, unless he comes back to me." Mia felt the walls of the kitchen closing in. Her heart pounded violently. She stumbled into the living room, calling for Oliver. He rushed in, panic evident on his face when he saw her distressed state. "She's threatening to go public," Mia managed, her hands shaking as she handed over her phone. Oliver scrolled through the messages, his mouth set in a grim line. "I'll handle this," he said, but his eyes flickered with fear. "She doesn't have anything that can't be explained, right?" Mia closed her eyes in despair. "It doesn't matter. A scandal like this will overshadow everything: our marriage, your company, our child's future." And maybe that's what she wants. Oliver cursed under his breath. "I'll call our legal team PR specialists. We'll do damage control. I promise I ended it with her. She's just lashing out." Mia felt the weight of hopelessness. Her perfect life was teetering on the brink of a public, humiliating collapse. She wanted to run away, to shield herself and her unborn baby from the storm. But she also knew that illusions had to die if she ever wanted to build something real again. Within 24 hours, rumors began to swirl on social media. Anonymous tips, cryptic photos that vaguely showed Oliver's silhouette with a blonde woman in a compromising position. It was enough to spark endless gossip. Tabloid headlines screamed about the tech tycoon's secret mistress, although none outright named Isabel or Mia yet. Oliver and his legal team scrambled, issuing carefully worded denials, threatening lawsuits against tabloids for defamation. However, the damage was done. Investors called for urgent meetings. The philanthropic board expressed concern about negative press overshadowing their causes. Mia received concerned texts from friends and acquaintances, all asking if she was okay. Mia felt numb. She'd spent years honing Oliver's public image, presenting him as a dedicated family man. Now that narrative lay in ruins. Each day, more rumors sprouted. Some claimed Isabel was pregnant as well. Others accused Mia of orchestrating the entire scandal for publicity. The noise was deafening. Through it all, Oliver tried to reassure her. "We'll get through this," he kept saying, but he looked thinner, paler, as if the weight of his lies were crushing him. Lillian insisted Mia take some time away, go on a small retreat, but Mia couldn't leave her own house. She dreaded facing the paparazzi who lurked outside the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the betrayed wife. One night, after an especially brutal day of seeing her husband's name dragged through the mud, Mia broke down in tears in the nursery. She sat in the rocking chair, staring at the half-painted walls and scattered baby clothes. She felt Oliver's presence before he spoke. "Mia," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "I'm so sorry." She looked at him, her eyes swimming with tears. "I wanted a loving home for our child, Oliver. I wanted security, trust, everything we worked for. And now," she gestured helplessly at the swirling chaos beyond these walls, "we've lost it all." He swallowed hard, tears glistening in his own eyes. "I can't erase what I did, but I still love you. Please believe me." She brushed away her tears. "It's not just about love anymore. It's about whether we can rebuild." "I don't know if I can." Oliver bowed his head. "You have every right to feel that way. Just know that I won't stop trying." As the scandal ballooned, Isabel made her boldest move. She granted an anonymous interview to a notorious online gossip site. She didn't reveal her name, but she shared enough details, times, places, and insinuations to make it obvious to those within their social circle who she was. The site published grainy photos of Oliver entering her penthouse, text messages that indicated an intimate relationship, and hints of hush money offers. Mia read the article in horror. Even though it was anonymous, the entire world would piece together the identities. She braced for the avalanche of speculation. Oliver's PR team worked overtime to label the interview as fabricated, calling the photos misleading. But the damage grew. Some investors froze their involvement, worried about the potential negative press. Rival companies seized the opportunity to undermine Oliver's projects. The philanthropic board wavered, unsure if they wanted Oliver as their figurehead anymore. Meanwhile, Mia felt like she was living in a bad dream. She was hounded by reporters, her phone flooded with calls. She stayed inside most days, curtains drawn. The stress took a toll on her pregnancy. At one of her prenatal checkups, the doctor warned that her blood pressure was too high. She needed to rest and reduce anxiety for the baby's sake. Lillian insisted Mia come stay at her apartment for a while to escape the media circus. Mia agreed, seeing no other option. With Oliver's blessing, she packed a few essentials and left the mansion under the cover of night. She felt a pang in her chest when she kissed Oliver's cheek goodbye, uncertain when or if she'd return. In Lillian's cozy guest room, Mia found temporary solace. She turned off her phone, disconnected from social media, and focused on the baby. She spent her days napping, reading, and practicing light meditation. Lillian, protective as ever, handled phone calls and updates. Occasionally, Oliver would swing by, armed with groceries or small gestures of affection. He promised that the worst storm was passing, though Mia felt uncertain. Then, out of nowhere, an opportunity arose. Another high-profile scandal dominated the news cycle. An A-list celebrity was caught in a huge controversy. The tabloids shifted focus, and the Harding affair was momentarily overshadowed. Oliver's PR team saw their opening and launched a charitable initiative that had been in the works for months. They publicly highlighted Mia's involvement and the philanthropic aims, rebranding Oliver as a compassionate entrepreneur. The negative headlines receded, replaced with neutral or even positive coverage. The respite was a blessing. Slowly, interest in Isabel's story waned. She tried to stir more drama on social media, but the public's attention had moved on. Her final card, an interview naming names, never materialized, likely because Oliver's legal team threatened serious legal repercussions if she broke confidentiality laws or defamed him without proof. A month passed in relative calm. Mia, still cautious and guarded, maintained her distance from Oliver, though she occasionally visited the mansion for baby-related matters. The nursery was nearly finished. Oliver poured his energy into making it perfect, a sign of penance and hope. With the baby due in a few short weeks, Mia made a decision. She couldn't carry this turmoil into the delivery room. She needed peace, one way or another. Oliver invited her to dinner at the mansion to talk. She accepted, mustering her courage. She arrived at dusk, the house bathed in the warm glow of sunset. Oliver had prepared a simple meal. They ate in near silence, both aware of the tension. After dinner, Oliver guided her to the nursery. It was beautiful. Walls painted in soft, neutral tones with whimsical stars and clouds. A sturdy crib lined with plush blankets, shelves stocked with children's books. He turned to her, eyes full of apology. "I want our child to grow up in a home filled with love. I know you have every reason not to forgive me, but I hope we can start fresh." Mia ran her fingers along the edge of the crib. "You hurt me in ways I never imagined." "You broke my trust." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to earn it back. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want." She studied his face. For the first time in weeks, she sensed genuine remorse and a willingness to change. She took a shaky breath. "Therapy, then? Let's do it. If there's a chance to rebuild, we owe it to our child to try." Oliver's shoulders sagged in relief. Tears glistened in his eyes. He moved closer, and this time, Mia let him cradle her in a gentle embrace. They stood there for a long moment, sharing quiet tears of uncertainty and hope. Oliver and Mia began couples therapy. They delved into painful truths, dissecting the roots of Oliver's affair, his insecurities, the suffocating pressure he felt as a high-profile CEO, the emotional distance that had crept into their marriage. Mia explored her own fears, her tendency to lose herself in Oliver's ambitions, and how she had overlooked signs of dissatisfaction in their relationship. The therapy sessions were grueling, but each tear shed was a step toward healing. They established new boundaries. Oliver agreed to show Mia his phone messages if she ever felt uneasy. No more secrets. Mia learned to communicate her feelings of stress or loneliness more openly. It was a fragile, cautious journey, and both knew they might stumble along the way. With her due date approaching, Mia decided to move back into the mansion. The paparazzi had mostly lost interest, and the philanthropic boards had warmed to the Hardings again, especially with Mia's ongoing charitable work. Oliver's business rebounded as well, buoyed by his unwavering efforts to salvage investor confidence. Late one night, Mia woke to a mild ache in her lower abdomen. She brushed it off as another pregnancy discomfort, but the discomfort soon escalated. She tried walking around, but the pain intensified, spreading around her belly. Realization dawned her baby was coming. Oliver, half asleep, jolted awake to Mia's urgent call. He wasted no time, grabbing the hospital bags they had packed weeks ago. The car ride was a blur of rushed breathing and phone calls to the doctor. Hours later, Mia found herself in a hospital delivery room, sweat coating her brow, tears of pain mingling with tears of anticipation. Oliver stayed by her side through it all, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. In that raw, visceral moment, there were no scandals, no mistrust, just two people fighting through pain and uncertainty to bring new life into the world. After several exhausting hours, the baby's cries filled the room. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing a tiny, squirming infant in Mia's arms. Mia sobbed with relief and sheer wonder. Oliver, tears streaming, kissed Mia's forehead, then gazed at their daughter. A profound sense of awe and gratitude enveloped them. In the weeks that followed, the Hardings settled into a new routine. They named their daughter Olivia Rose Harding. The mansion, once a battleground, transformed into a place of midnight feedings, soft lullabies, and hesitant smiles. Mia and Oliver continued therapy. They tackled challenges as they arose. Trust was not rebuilt overnight, but the presence of Olivia gave them renewed purpose. Isabel Pierce occasionally resurfaced in social circles, but her 15 minutes of scandalous fame had faded. She tried to reignite drama through cryptic social media posts, but few were interested anymore. Oliver had severed all ties, refusing any contact that wasn't strictly professional, and even that was nearly non-existent. Mia chose not to engage publicly in any war of words. She had her own battles to fight, learning to trust Oliver again, maintaining her mental health, and caring for a newborn. Every day, she discovered new complexities, the exhaustion of late-night feedings, the rush of love when Olivia grasped her finger, the quiet moments when Oliver would rock their daughter to sleep. In those tender scenes, Mia saw flickers of the man who once stayed up all night with her in a dingy cafe, dreaming about building a better future. Months passed, and therapy helped them reach a delicate equilibrium. Oliver faced his demons, acknowledging that his affair was a destructive escape rather than a real solution to his inner turmoil. Mia recognized her own role in placing Oliver on a pedestal, sometimes neglecting her emotional needs. Though the pain of betrayal never fully vanished, it dulled, replaced by a cautious optimism. Mia began to re-establish her own identity. She returned to marketing consulting on a flexible schedule, finding fulfillment in helping startups, especially those founded by women. She no longer needed to revolve her entire world around Oliver's ambitions. Oliver, for his part, embraced fatherhood with uncharacteristic gentleness. Every evening, he hurried home from the office to spend time with Mia and Olivia. No late-night messages, no secrets. Their marriage wasn't the same as before, but in some ways it grew stronger. It had lost its naive perfection, replaced by a lived-in resilience. They had confronted the worst possible betrayal and found a path forward, albeit a rocky one. For Mia, the biggest hurdle remained trusting Oliver fully. She didn't shy away from voicing her doubts during therapy sessions, and Oliver continued to show patience, hoping to prove his commitment day by day. Despite everything, they found moments of genuine happiness. Mia would catch Oliver cradling Olivia, humming a soft tune, lost in the magic of being a father. She saw the remorse in his eyes melt into determination to be better. She felt gratitude that her child was healthy, that they had the resources to give Olivia a bright future. Love, battered and bruised, still glowed. The story of the mistress who texted the millionaire at 2 a.m. had turned into a cautionary tale within their circle. People whispered about the Hardings' near downfall and subsequent reconciliation. Some ridiculed Mia for taking Oliver back. Others admired her strength and willingness to fight for her family. Mia learned not to base her choices on the chorus of outside opinions. She had found her own reasons for staying. Eventually, the Hardings shared a heartfelt statement with the media, a short announcement emphasizing the birth of their daughter, their commitment to family, and their dedication to philanthropic causes. They made no explicit reference to the affair, simply stating they had faced personal challenges and chosen to move forward together. The measured honesty resonated with many, restoring a degree of public sympathy. On Olivia's first birthday, Mia organized a small, intimate celebration. Family and close friends gathered in the backyard, where balloons and a pastel cake awaited. Lillian was there, proud and supportive as ever. Oliver's parents flew in, doting over their granddaughter. Mia's mother cradled Olivia with tears of joy, grateful her daughter had weathered the storm. At one point, Mia stepped aside, watching Oliver and Olivia from a distance. He was helping their daughter pat a birthday balloon, laughing each time she squealed in delight. A wave of warmth and acceptance washed over Mia. She remembered the anguish of discovering that 2am text, the heartbreak of realizing her husband was capable of betrayal. And now, here they were scarred but alive, forging a path that honored both the pain of the past and the hope of the future. Oliver caught her gaze, offering a soft, tentative smile. Mia returned it. In that look, they acknowledged everything: the hurt, the healing, the determination to keep trying. Life was far from perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. Life has a way of testing our foundations, even when they seem unbreakable. In this story, Mia and Oliver's marriage shatters under the weight of betrayal, only to reveal a path where love can be rebuilt through honesty and determination. Whether they remain forever united or not, the strength they find speaks to the resilience of the human spirit. We've witnessed secrets unravel, hearts break, and a newborn life spark renewed purpose. Yet through every heartbreak and betrayal, there's a chance, no matter how slim, to heal and move forward. If this story moved you, taught you something, or simply kept you on the edge of your seat, I invite you to like this video, share it with friends who appreciate real-life drama, and subscribe to my channel for more captivating stories. Your support helps us continue bringing heartfelt, unforgettable tales to life. Thank you for watching.